Turn on your mechanical translator.
Sure, of course. I've got them right here.
My guess is, sir, that they use microwaves for what you might call person-to-person conversation.
The basic idea is that there's a groove that I can follow that's exactly right for me to live in an optimum way.
Truth.
And so...
Right, today we have what I hope will be an interesting guest, a little bit left field. We're going to talk to Michael Faudet. Now, those of you who've been in advertising in New Zealand as long as me will know Michael, who was, I believe, ECD of DDB back in New Zealand, back in the day.
Yes.
Then went over to Australia and was ECD
in Sydney
DDB
for
Sydney.
a big stint, and then Melbourne.
Okay, and since then, Michael has gone on to be one of the biggest selling poets
Yes.
in the world.
I know, remarkable.
In the world, which is quite extraordinary. And
Crazy.
He lives with his partner, Lang
Liav,
who is also one of the biggest selling poets.
Oh, she's the real talent in the family.
I can believe that, Michael. Extraordinary story that poetry. Who knew it was a thing? I thought it died out in Victorian times, but it's still going strong.
Well, poetry. I mean, I think there was an article. I don't know the actual date, but it was only a few.
Michael knows no dates.
I don't know. I know Churchill's birthday,
1874.
So we've established that one. So there's a good beginning. But no, I read somewhere that I think it came from Barnes and Noble, the US book chain, and it said, I think the headline was "Poetry is Dead."
Yeah,
and that was the sort of big battle cry. Also, if any of you would be writers, and you look at sending manuscript submissions to especially the overseas publishers, often many of them on the websites have but no poetry submissions.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was this nice little niche that was doing a bit of business from mainly university students.
So it was actually sheer bloody mindedness. But we'll come to the poetry side in a minute, Michael. We will first talk about advertising. Mm-hmm. So how did you get into the business? Michael's dad, Doug Faudet,
yes,
who in a sense kind of hired me foolishly to DDB.
No, Doug loves you.
20 whatever years ago. Yeah. He loves me so much he moved to Perth.
Yes,
to get away from both of us.
Absolutely.
Doug Faudet was, and still is, Michael's dad.
Yes, so, remarkably so.
And I actually first met Michael in I can't remember, it was some bar in about. I don't know where the bar was. I mean, how could we have possibly remembered at that time of the night? Anyway, I met you in a bar, and you'd sort of come from somewhere. England, it's called.
England, that's right. That country, 2/3 of the world and all that sort of stuff. Churchill, out there, let's go get them. But no, that's where someone tapped me on the shoulder, then sort of said, this guy, you should check him out, this one. And you'd been away writing a book on an island or something.
Correct. I'd been in the Cook Islands. Doing some writing. So going back even before those dark times in some bar somewhere in Auckland
with a thump 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 music. Yeah.
How did you get into the business?
Well, I mean, the first advertising agency, and I mean, I know it's a podcast, but I'm using that fingers inverted commas.
Yes.
Was it was a place called NAS Advertising in Perth, and it became part of what the Neville Jeffries Group, which was a kind of Australian-owned agency at the time.
So is that where you were brought up, in Perth?
Yeah, I was born in the UK and raised in Australia, basically. Went to a particularly horrible school around about when I was about 13. So I sort of grew up in the UK, got sort of transplanted to Australia, which was always fun around that time in the 70s. Yeah. And, that was Perth. But I worked for this sort of agency, but it's how I got there. It wasn't like I just walked into advertising, because to be honest with you, advertising was something I never would have wanted to do. My father was in advertising. Yeah. And he at the time was running and working in advertising in Perth for agencies. I think McCann was just one of them, O&M maybe.
Yeah.
But they used to have these like crazy barbecues. So I would probably be like a young teenager, and then I'd see my dad's friends around. They're all laughing, drinking, and having this frivolity. And I always thought, geez, all these adults acting like this. And so it was a world that I never really gravitated to. It was not on my shopping list to do.
But did you not think that because this happened to me, I used my dad worked in advertising, and he used to go to the rugby, charity rugby in London with all advertising folks there, and that's when I first kind of got interested in the business. I was probably about 12, and there were lots of large blokes in fur coats with pipes and cigars talking loudly, quite drunk and laughing at their own jokes, and an awful lot of girls in miniskirts.
I think they were pimps, weren't they?
Running around. They told me they were advertising people, and I thought this looks like fun. This isn't this isn't church youth club,
right? Yeah.
But you went, oh no, I don't like the look of that.
Well, I didn't see all the girls first. Look, to put it bluntly, I didn't see all of that, and because it was Perth, it's very hot. There are not many people wearing fur coats. I think if I'd got that sort of vision, then maybe I'd have thought, well, well, I mean, that was in the politically correct times, wasn't it? And I think that fur coats are terrible, for the record. But no, I didn't have that. I left home relatively early. I keep saying 11 going on 17. So it was around about that sort of period, and my dad and my mum transferred with my sister to Melbourne. He'd got a job in Melbourne, sort of first big posting, and I decided that my friends were here in Perth. I would stay, I would take care of myself, find somewhere to rent with friends, the mattress on the floor kind of gig. So I did that, and I didn't bother going to university. I was more inclined to go out and get work. And there wasn't GoFundMe pages in those days. I wasn't like, I want to pursue whatever, can you please give me money? So I'd just go through the job columns, and there was a lot of job columns, and I saw one which was for working for a cinema advertising company. So this is the first sort of step to a very, hopefully for you, Paul, short journey. But and I applied for it. I went there and I turned up in this building, this sort of office for WA Cinema Advertising, and it was, run by a guy called Mr. White, and his wife worked there and his daughter Natalie, so it was a family business. And what they did was, I met this sort of sales manager, and his name was, I won't use his name, but let's just call him David, and he'd been around, and he gave us some training and said, your job is to go and cold call prospects, clients, and get them to advertise on cinema. And the big point of difference, the USP, wasn't that they, those, you go to the movies, you got your choc top, and a slide comes up, Terry's vacuum cleaners. The
Next
best
door
there
to the
is.
cinema.
Absolutely. Well, their point of difference was this. They would do your ad on 35mm Kodak Eastman film. So what they would do is they'd take your photograph, put it a camera over it, and they could do a technique where the camera moved slightly, and it would give the impression of somebody looking through your shop or your store. Just imagine that magic. And you could be up there on the silver screen alongside people like Coca-Cola, big car companies. It was your opportunity for your souvlaki bar to be up there with the big boys. And the great thing about cinema, that was explained to me, was that when people come in, it's fairly dark, and they look up at the screen. So they watch your ad. Whereas on a newspaper, they can just turn the page, and often the ad, if you're lucky for the souvlaki bar, is a very, 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 very tiny ad. And for that amount of money that you would waste sticking it in there, you could be up on the big screen with the big brands and the big clients. And
you see, Michael is an actual salesman. He's trying to sell me.
Well, that's what they told me. And, you would sell it by the week. They've got to buy a bloody week of appearances, and they can buy one cinema or multiple cinemas. They even had drive-ins at that time in Perth, good weather, but you never made as much money on the drive-ins. So you go out there, you'd sell it, you go in, knock on the door, and if someone signed, they had to sign up then. But the hardest part of the sale was you had to say to them, just when you've got them, oh, I might give this a go. I'm not sure about it, though. They'd go, you say, well, it's a 52-week contract. Far out, And you have to get them to sign 52 weeks commitment. Now, it might be $35 a week, sometimes more if they got multiple cinemas, if you can really push them, And you take the contract back, you go in, and Mr. White, who was vertically challenged, a small man, his wife was... she's seen, I'm sure she wasn't, but she seemed absolutely fucking insane. But they'd come in and they'd greet you. And then this David sort of guy, the big sort of salesman, who would put like used car salesmen to shame. I mean, this was the ultimate man, He was the guy who would knock on the door when someone said no to him. He ran around the back and knocked and said, oh, I'm glad I got you. There's a really rude bastard at the front door. I mean, this was, all he was missing was his suitcase with fucking dustpans and things in it. But... you walk in there and they would giggle. Mr. Wright would visibly giggle, want to sit you down in his office to ask you about the sale. And when the prospect signed it, what did they look like? And things like this. And I was probably about 18, 19 at the time. And I said, well, we've got them to do it. And he would be so happy. But one thing I would say for WA Cinema Advertising, they paid us 15% of the contract. So if you signed a dude up, for $30 a week, $50 a week, $100 a week times 52 weeks, you earn 15%. So you have a good run there. You're walking around on the weekend with swags and money. Some weeks I turn over $1,500.
So you're
in the 80s, early 80s, Paul.
So you're getting good money doing that, and you were writing the ads for them as well. Well, there wasn't a lot of writing, really, was there?
Well,
we had a 35mm shot of your shop.
We had an art department. I'll do the inverted commas again in there who would lay out Letraset. And they had this camera operator down at a film lab, and he was like, he seemed to be drunk all the time.
Rostrum.
Yeah, he was drunk.
Rostrum camera.
Yeah, drunk. He was drunk all the time.
Yeah.
And he was part somehow connected with the business, and he would do that. But no, it wasn't. It was selling. And the place also had two magazines, lifestyle magazines, WA Esquire and WA Looks, and they were glossy full cover, and they had sales reps working there. It wasn't big. So you talk about probably the whole company was about 20 people, if that. So you got to know each other, but that got me into advertising.
You're listening to Truth and Soul.
And so you went from there to a
agency.
An agency. Because that taught you selling lessons, I'm sure.
Well, this is where it's leading to. No, well, it taught me, yes, it taught me to sell, to not be frightened, to think on your feet and to ask for the order. And also to understand that you've got to think about why would this medium be any good for the person? And I think that was gave me the difference. No, but Mr. White, he had this party one night and him and his wife came down the stairs and they had matching black leather trousers on. Which was, it's a very strange, company. Well, no, he just announced one day to myself and a friend of mine who was the sales manager. I wasn't the sales manager, he was the sales manager of one of the magazines. He said, I've sold the company. I was said, oh, great Christmas party, huh? He said, well, yeah. And he said, now, good news is, he said, Michael, you've got a job. I thought, fuck, that's good, okay. He said, no, but you're going. I've sold you with Barry here. You're going to work for the new owner of WA Esquire magazine. I've sold it to him. I've told him that you guys are good salespeople and it would work out for you. And I've done that because you've done such a good job for us.
So you're kind of indentured slavery.
Yeah, like chattels on a house. Yeah. Oh, yeah, you can keep... Oh, the lamp. Yeah, you can take the lamp. Yeah. No. Well, we go there. I thought, I was young, so I thought, oh, okay. And I hadn't sold magazines, so I jumped from cinema, I'm selling magazine. Now, magazines is a bit of a different format. Not that much different, because our ads on didn't really move that well on cinema. But I went there and met this new guy. We'll call him Montague.
Monty.
Yeah, Monty, like the dog. And he had a little office, and we hired one of our friends as the art director. And on the first time we sort of met this bloke, he came in and said, you may have seen me before. And I was thinking, no, I fucking haven't seen you before. He said, I was the guy on 60 Minutes. And, I'm sure your listeners know, 60 Minutes was a journalistic show. It was, especially back in the 80s, it actually did stories with semi-facts.
Yeah.
And often covered a lot of, like con men in Australia. And he said, yeah, you might have seen me on 60 Minutes. I was the guy, accused of selling those fraudulent tapes. I thought, fuck me, that's a good beginning to meet your new
hit
owner
the big
boss.
time.
Absolutely. I thought, well, we're in the right company here,
What were the tapes that he sold?
Well, he had there was plenty of tapes sitting around this office. So of course we
blank tapes.
Well, yeah, well, we got them, the little the little cassettes, kids. That's what they were, little cassettes. And it sort of said, how to give up smoking. You'd put the tape in, and you'd hear the sounds of crashing waves, right? It's just for the entire tape. So it's supposed to be, it's a subliminal message. So subliminal, you'll never hear it at all. And you could play this tape. I'm not sure what was on there. It could be telling you, go and murder someone. It could be on there. I just think there were sounds of sea, and he was flogging them. It's a bit like get your miniature portrait of the Queen, only $59.95. Hang it with pride in your house, and you get a stamp sent to you. It was that kind of thing, and that was never going to last. He didn't even print business cards, for goodness sakes. And so my friend and I.
So he was selling tape. Blank.
Well, he was.
Blank tapes to people going, listen to this and you'll give up smoking.
Exactly. Probably there was a big magazine culture in Australia at that time. So you look on the back of the magazine, give up now. It's so easy. Get this tape, lay back in bed, and by the morning time you won't be reaching for the Winfields.
I would have thought there was worse fraud going on in Australia than that.
Well, there were. Look, I think that's the icing on the cake. To be completely frank with you, I agree with you. I mean, and he obviously had the money to move state and buy a magazine for Mr. White. Mr. White, sold it. And this guy sent us out. He said, now get them business in. And he said, I've thought about a repositioning for WA Esquire, because this was focused towards men. He said, it's the magazine for men that women like. I said, all right, okay, fuck, that's great. And he said, so women
like the men or the magazine?
Well, probably both.
Yeah.
I mean, my friend and I thought we've got to generate some money. So we'd go to the wine area of Perth. Think, why don't we do a story on wine? That was a good opener. So you knock on vineyards, say, hey, we're doing a story for WA Esquire on wine. Not sure where you'd be interested, as you probably wouldn't, but we're going to be doing a few on there. We just want to check so you don't miss out. Oh, I said, what is this wine thing? And we didn't have cards. So they said, so where are you from? You got a business card? No, zip. But we managed to sort of build a feature and sell. We also got escort agencies.
You got them?
Yeah.
Oh, as clients?
Oh, yeah, we got them. We got first to sell into with WA Cinema Advertising, so we got them to come across. We used to do cinema ads based on relaxation, Paul. Nothing.
Nothing
No,
funny,
you go out there,
smutty.
for relaxing times. Come to Aphrodite's.
Okay. Perth in the 70s.
So, look, 80s actually.
80s.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah, 80s now. But where that's leading to was that it was always a basis of selling, doing this. Montague's company went bust, so we're out on my luck again. And I went and worked for Pearl and Dean Advertising, where they did slides, and it was run by a sociopath, prick. But I'd say that to his face if he was here. But
Bastard.
No, look, he's probably just a sociopath. He can't help himself. But through that, I came across this ad agency called NAS Advertising, because I'd gone for one of their clients, and I got referred by the client, you need to talk to our advertising agency. So I went along, and I met with the account executive, and I sort of did a double take. He was one of the guys who used to work at this WA Cinema Advertising. And I go, wow, John, you're here. And he goes, Michael. He said, come and sit down. He said, what are you doing? And I told him, and he said, fuck that. He said, come and work for us. He said, I'll put you in accounts. You can be an account man. A suit. You can be a suit, and you can work with me. And he said, believe me, there's a lot of big clients out there, and we can go and get them, and it's easy. I said, well, yeah. I said, it pays, or is it commission? He said, no. He said, that's the best part about it. He said, it'd be slightly less than what you're earning, probably, and I wasn't earning much with Montague, and I was out of a place. So I said, absolutely, of course, John, when do you want me to start? So that's how I started. I started for a long way to getting into it. I started as a suit.
So how did you go from suit to copywriter? I'm guessing you're a copywriter, not an art director.
Well, I worked as the suit, and I had a couple of clients.
But when did you switch to the creative side? Was it at NAS?
Oh, well, no, because one of my clients was one of the biggest and the largest furniture and electrical retailers. They had this really catchy name. They were called Vox Adian. So
Faudet.
It's about the future of electronics. Even though the name, I go Vox-Adian, it sounded like 1920s. They had 78 records playing on there, and Matt Busby singing. But it was kind of like, I worked for them. They were, I thought, a nice client, a demanding client. Perth's a pretty retail town, and these people, it's the days of newspapers, kids, when they actually ran lots of ads. DPSs, double page spreads, regularly, not to mention catalogues pumping out all the bloody time. And it was just necessity. When the catalogues came through, it was all hands on deck. You just get the stuff from the buyers, the product list, you have to write it. So I started writing catalogue copy. Yeah. And then I found an absolute perverse pleasure in doing it. And you got this incredible freedom. So I started writing things in the catalogues. I just go, keep your neighbours awake with this Sony boombox. They'll be sure to call the cops. To talk about it's got 3 speakers and you list the bullet points. Or, Mum will be thrilled when you give her this Sunbeam iron for Christmas. So I just sort of would tear the place a little bit up within the catalogue, and surprisingly enough, no one seemed to care, and I enjoyed it. I kind of liked it, and so much so that they said to me one year, look, the Christmas catalogue is the big shrine for Vox-Adian. We want a theme for it. And I thought, fuck, well, generally it's Santa Claus, Rudolph, a red nose blinking next to a price point or whatever. Yeah. So I just said, well, stupidly, in this meeting, I said, well, why don't we just base it on the 3 wise men, right? I said, so, why don't we have an ad with the 3 wise men? They can't find the bloody stuff. And I say, fuck this, we'll go to Vox-Adian. Oh, wow, look at all this stuff. Jesus will really love this. So they agreed in the meeting. This was before,
before anti-blasphemy law.
And you can't, happy holidays and all of that. When people were less easily shocked, and you didn't need warnings on the newspaper articles. Heaven knows how we survived before then. But they bought the concept, and we shot the ad. So it was my first TV ad, Paul. And you kind of, in those days in Perth, there wasn't the TV ads. You didn't make a lot. It was a very print-dominated town. Unless you had some good clients, they would shoot ads. Most of the ads, will give you an example. I think one of the biggest companies was called Pedro Video.
Pedro Video.
So it wasn't Pedro Film. It's Pedro Video, and it's Pedro's the company, and it was Pedro who operated the camera, and that's about it. With that, like that little lamps you got over there. You hold that on the thing, right? So he made this ad, and of course the client wanted to be in it. 3 of the buyers said, I want to be in that ad. That way it'd be funny, all my family will see me in the ad. So they had to dress them up as 3 wise men. The clients never acted. Not that really.
Well, you never made an ad. So.
I never made an ad. It's all perfect. I didn't even get to actually go on the shoot the ad because I was that junior. My boss went, and I think him and the art director, they did it. Thank God. Yeah. And it was just this mental. I wish I had it now. It'd be very, very funny if you smoked a few joints. But that was the very first ad I ever got to do. But it ignited a passion in me to say, I don't know if I like this account service biz. I like the clients. I've always loved clients. But I like this writing game. I enjoy writing the catalogue. I like the idea that something can come out of your mouth, really ridiculous, absolutely freaking ridiculous, and these sort of people might go, that's a good idea. That's got some sort of tangibility. So I said to them...
there, folks, we have advertising summed up.
Well, probably. I wouldn't say that. Advertising is lies well sold, if you want it summed up. But... And I do believe that. But and that's for another time. But... I had to then just say to the boss, could I jump from being a suit to doing the creative thing? And he ummed and ahed and rubbed his chin a bit. And he said, you can, but we can't pay you as much, and you leave a gap. And he said, well, I'll make you a deal. You can be a suit and write ads. Do both. And keep the salary you've got. So I did that. And at night, because we never got a chance to do anything decent, I started to send off the Australian Award Annual. And at the time, they were filled with ads by Campaign Palace. Yep. And they do wonderful print ads. And so, because growing up in Perth, print was the main medium, I fell in love with a lot of the work that they did. And I used to, at night, just write ads that I could, for phantom clients, people I didn't have. I guess today you call it, working on your book.
Yeah. So just a bit of background. Campaign Palace was the best and best known agency in Australia for quite a while. And it was like the BBH.
It was
Australia.
We had Jack Vaughan, your old mate.
Jack Vaughan, who first hired me in London in
there you go.
1820.
1820, absolutely.
Yeah.
But he was there. A lot of people went through that. I think
Devo was there.
May have been. I was just trying.
Gordon Trembath.
What's the TBWA? It was Scott Wyburn, I think.
Scott Wyburn. So they were, like the boss agency.
They were
in Australia, and they then got bought by WPP and closed the door.
I mean, at their best, and they're at their best for a while. I mean, they're doing tremendous work. And I would see their ads because it would be littered. That's the wrong word, not littered. They'd be shining from the albums. That you would see when you read the book. So
I guess, sorry, Michael, that they were the equivalent in New Zealand of Saatchi and Saatchi Wellington back in the day. They kind of were the shining beacon for creativity, and the rest of the industry caught up eventually, but at the time they were
at the time. And I mean, as you know, Paul, Saatchi's Wellington in its heyday, I'm sure you're doing fantastic now. But in the period of Kim Fall, it was a killer shop. I would say that the Palace were not only as good as them, probably better.
Oh, I'd say they were a lot bigger.
And the work was iconic. They were good at TV with Ants Pants, hole-proof work. I'm wearing no knickers. Their print was just magic. The copywriting was superb. And they weren't afraid to do things, like 15 by 3s, which is the old days explained on the newspaper, column centimetres by 3, 15 centimetres by 3 columns.
Yeah.
And they could stick an ad in there and turn it into poetry. So that would inspire me to go home, and when I wasn't hanging out with my friends or doing something, just play around and you just write ads. I guess you created your own sort of ad school that they have now. You just did it your own. You say, what if a battery never died, that old chestnut, and things like that.
Yeah.
So I
stickiest glue and longest lasting battery. So you were doing it on your own, or you had someone to? No,
just by myself.
Yeah.
It was. Well, a lot of my friends used to smoke dope.
Yeah.
Paul.
Did you, Michael? I can cut out your answer later.
No, well, I have tried it, and of course I used to smoke some, but.
It doesn't help, does it?
Well, no, I don't think it's any... Well, for some people it does. Who is it? Seth Rogen, the actor and writer.
Yeah.
He's stoned, he says, all the time. And he works that way, and he writes his scripts that way. And he says it works for him. So I guess it works. It doesn't necessarily work for me.
Normally, I wouldn't encourage it. Kids?
Well, obviously no. I mean, it's horses for courses, and we didn't do it all the time. I wasn't sitting there, playing Cheech and Chong movies in the background, smoking a joint and writing. No, but I think when I was bored, I just go in my bedroom and write ads, and some were terrible, and others were worse. But but it was enough, and then I came for a trip to New Zealand. My dad, by that time, had moved from the eastern states to New Zealand to go to DDB, and I shared some of the work, and he put it in front of, I don't know, maybe Pete Thompson at the time. I'm not sure.
So Pete Thompson, the creative director of DDB, at some stage around then, I worked with Pete for, I don't know, 5-6 years.
500 years.
500 years.
Right, there's 3 apples,
man. Great guy, very funny. He had 2
hilarious.
jokes. He told them a lot.
Yeah, and he had great ways of explaining things. There's 3 apples on a page.
Yeah.
This one here is attached to a tree. Which one is the freshest?
Yeah.
Okay. But no, Pete's a wonderful man.
Pete's a legend. Don't see him around. And Mrs. Pete.
Oh, Judy is
still head of TV at DDB.
And so
I ended up there for my sins. The money was dreadful.
Yeah.
I remember, I think it was, from memory, I've got my phone when I went there, 1989, right? So I moved across, took the job. I think the money was about $13,000 a year, which was like pretty low, even for the time. But it was enough to get me started, and it was a sink or swim. It was made pretty clear to me.
Yeah.
You know, your dad's running it, so don't embarrass him. Secondly, there's nothing certain here. Give me a look in, and you got to go for it. And so I did, and I'm grateful to Peter Thompson. Peter Thompson, what a fabulous, that's my first CD. I mean, that day, there was a CD. That was the boss. There wasn't, chief creative officers, a row of ECDs and more CDs down the corridor. He was the CD.
Yeah.
And I really liked Pete. He took me under his wing. We'd worked together. He was working with a very good writer called Paul Westlake, and they were working. But
Westy.
Westy. So I was put into the smallest office, the broom cupboard. They had a mop on the corner, and I worked there, and I worked as best I could, listened, tried to learn as much as I could very, very quickly. And it was I started with they had Ford at the time, because it was DDB Needham. They had the Ford account, and they gave me the spare parts catalogue. I thought, wow, I've moved up in the world from Vox-Adian, that no one's heard of, to Ford. So I thought, bonus. I went home thinking, absolutely bonus.
I've arrived.
Yeah, and they'd say, oh, we need something by tomorrow. So I just came back and I said, well, we'll take the typeface and we'll set it in a block of ice and photograph it. Look what we've done to our prices. No wonder they won't burn a hole in your pocket. Boom tish. So, and put it in ice, so they're frozen. And they said, oh, they took that out. Ford liked it. And then they gave me Bacardi brand to look at what would he do with a Bacardi. So I did that. And then eventually they got me an art director. And I started to feel a little bit part of the system rather than someone that's just your dad's son working there. And it was a good time. That's where I got the break, and they got me an art director called Ruth Martin, and she was more experienced than what I was, and I was very lucky to meet with her and work with her. She was fabulous. She put up with me, and we started to do some ads together. We got given Darylenko, which is an agrochemical company, which no one wanted to do. I didn't realise back in 1989, no one was really sort of saying, oh, that's Monsanto in disguise. I wouldn't work on it now. But the client was fabulous. They were really lovely clients. I liked them a lot. We'd fly down Ruth and I to New Plymouth. I don't know if you've ever been to a poison factory. Not that I'm saying you make poisons, but have you been to one, Paul?
Not knowingly, no.
What do you mean not knowingly? Oh, look, what's these big vats here with big skull and crossbones? I don't know why I'm here. I was just going for a walk. So not knowingly. Well, yeah. But no, I like the client, and one of the biggest challenges, they said, was that they did a lot of posters in places that sold chemicals and fertilizer.
Chemical shops.
They sell that, fertilizer.
High street chemical shops.
Combine harvester, blades, shit like that, right? And it's not shit, it's important stuff. That's how you eat. Thank God for our farmers, I say.
Yes.
So let's support them. But, they said, the people, there's so many posters, everyone, how will our poster stand out? And I remember Ruth and I thinking, well, maybe if it's just not another big pack shot, like all the other pack shot, and you got Roundup with big pack shot, and you're all saying we kill weeds, if we could disrupt the space, that would be kind of cool. So we created a poster. It was a real helicopter photograph. We want a real helicopter photograph flying upside down, and its blades are cutting the reeds, and it says, I've forgotten what the line is, or you get really serious with your brush weeds and use Grazon. Pack shot, small pack shot. Big picture, big image. Yeah. Upside down helicopter. So he shot it, flipped the helicopter, spinning rotors, bits coming off the damn bloody reed. They loved it. And in fact, when they went and all the reps took them out, the people who had sort of said, I want two. You got two of those. I want one for my kid, or I want this. People would come and ask for the damn poster, stick it up in the barn, put it in the shed. And so the client was then very bullish. This was like a sort of hit, and it picked up some metal, and for Ruth and I, And so we did another one with bloody giant farmer pulling a big giant goat. And then the client said, I'd like to make a TV ad, you know, the upside down helicopter ad. And we'd like to make that. And Ruth and I said, well, God, yeah, you know.
I don't know how to fly a helicopter. But.
Don't know how you're going to do it, but we did it. And we went to Flying Fish, and they had a director there called David Green. Originally, I think I'd love to have had Richard Gibson do it. Richard was sort of a young director, and I'd see him at the fish parties, and there was something about Richard, there was an instant chemistry. I liked Richard. But David Green got the job from Fish, and he had done special effects directing. And ironically, there's a movie called Cliffhanger with Sylvester Stallone.
I must have missed that.
Well, yeah, it's a missable movie, Paul. I mean, you can get out tonight if you want. You want to, you know, lose a bit of your life watching it. But there's a helicopter scene where it crashes near him. And the trick at the time, the one effect, was that they used two different size helicopters. So they used a full-size helicopter and a large radio-controlled model of the same helicopter. So when they did it, it seemed like all seamless, they could do it.
Like Thunderbirds.
Yeah, but without the strings, right?
Yeah, okay,
they didn't use the frigging strings.
Yeah.
Because you can't, because it's got a rotor on it.
Yeah.
Paul. If you put the freaking strings on the... Yeah, you just cut it. I mean, you could try it. And up goes the helicopter, the real one, and it had little gorse bushes like they do on those planes. They cross them out, kills. And then these guys turn up with a radio-controlled thing. And you have to sit in cages. The cameramen were all in cages. Because this thing was big. We got the Radio Controlled Modelling Association. They built one. And it was dangerous. I mean, freaking dangerous. Yeah, that thing come whizzing by with blades. You know, he'd be the headless horseman.
Yeah,
headless horseman. Off we go. But they got that. They got that. And we also shot another ad while we were shooting that ad, because Ruth and I had worked on the script, and I'd written a script, and it was for the sister weed killer called Tordon. And we just got a Mr. Puniverse at the time. And he was this skinny guy, Mr. Puniverse, and we got him to come to a field, stand there, and he was in a singlet and gumboots, and he just started to pose. The camera starts and opens on him, and he just goes through these like poses as if he's a muscle man. I said, imagine you're Engelbert Humperdinck, but you're a muscle man like Arnold Schwarzenegger. There's all these screaming women, you're just showing off your body, and every time they do, they're going for it. Of course, when he was doing it, it was it was a lot funnier. And it just looked boom, 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 and irritating. We made him play up to the camera, and then a voice just came in very dry and said, you know, to rid your property of gorse, broom, and other obnoxious weeds. And the pack shot came and went and bumped him out of frame. Get tough, get Torden. We shot it in probably about 2 hours, not even that, while the big helicopter thing. Well, the helicopter did okay, but Tordon picked up Grand Prix Electronic at Axis.
So that would have been mid-90s?
Mid-90s, yeah. Mid or early 90s. Early. So Ruth and I, you know, we had a Grand Prix Axis under our belt very quickly. And out of something that just shows you the randomness of advertising, you know.
Just something that you did at the time. So what year did you move across to Sydney?
I went across the ditch in 1999.
Okay, so 10 years at DDB.
Yeah.
Auckland. So you went over to DDB Sydney, which and you worked with Gary Horner. Was Gary there then?
Yeah, well, I met Gary in Miami, of all places. There was some big McDonald's conference, and they asked for New Zealand and Australia to join it. It was actually a conference for Latin America, so it's really weird. And you turn up this conference. I'd never been to Miami at that stage, and got to this hotel, and I got to the room, and I thought, wow, it had an outdoor deck, Paul, like this outdoor deck, and it had a big outdoor spa in it. I thought, this is pretty damn flash. You know, it looked like Scarface sort of stuff.
Well, I have to say, so at that time, Miami was awash with cocaine. I know, not my thing, but I was in the Bahamas living there in 87, 88, which was just across from Miami. And Miami, massive influx of money, because it was the main stopping off point for cocaine into the States. It was a crazy town.
Oh, it's
hence Miami Vice.
Hence Miami Vice. Yeah, well, look, I wasn't on that side of it, on the cocaine trail. I wasn't out there. Would have been an interesting sideline to have done, but I never got into it. Close I got to was sherbet with a licorice in the top.
Yeah.
And I met Gary there, and Gary was going to do a speech.
So sorry, folks. Gary Horner, he was ex-London, and he had done what was one of the most famous ads in the
Hamlet.
UK at the time, which was
Photo
for Hamlet
booth.
cigars,
With
which
Ryan
was
Dean.
photo booth, which hopefully I'll remember to put on the link, because this was held up as being one of the best ads in the UK at the time.
I believe, and don't quote me on this, it won Cannes Ad of the Century.
Yeah,
If there is such an award, but that's what Gary told me.
yeah, which was odd because it was based on and it was
a
it
comedy.
was a direct copy.
Yes, well, it inspired.
Dare I say? Oh, okay. Well, it was the same actor.
Yeah, it was the same
song.
actor.
Ramsey Nesbitt.
Yeah. With his hair, the way
His
my
hair,
hair's
yeah.
getting.
Yeah.
No, but yes, it was very inspired by that. I would say, Paul. I'd say.
But no, that's what you did then, and that's what a lot of people do now. Just take a scene from a comedy show or a movie and change the logo, and bingo.
But I think now they did it and they found it, and a lot of creativity, I think, anywhere for the art scene or whatever is begged, still, and borrowed.
Well,
Pop art. Look at pop
because I
art.
say good artists borrow, great artists steal. Yeah.
I mean, it's not like anyone, Andy Warhol.
Another bastard ink.
Bastard.
artist.
Where do you get that, Andy? Where do you get that fucking idea from for a Campbell soup can?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, come on, there it is. There's the can. Made his bloody career, and Photo Booth probably made Gary and Ryan's career.
Yeah.
And they did other great stuff. Well, I met Gary in Miami, and we were in a bar.
Spa pool. Oh, bar.
And he was talking about, I've got to do this speech, I better get it right. And I said, I like doing speeches. I'm not great at podcasts, as you can hear, but I don't mind doing impromptu speech or wedding speeches is my speciality. He said, could you help me? And I said, yeah, I'll help you. Not that he needed it. Gary was great. He did the speech, but then we just hung out. We just seemed to, I liked Gary, and I kind of knew the work he was doing. I was certainly aware of the work that DDB Sydney were doing, and I just thought, well, this guy's done a bit, he's got some credentials, whatever you may feel when you look around people. He was great, and I like Gary a lot, and he was very good. And he said, why don't you come and work with me and for me in Sydney? I said, I like the with me bit, not sure about the for me bit, but and I thought when he said that, it's just talk over a few beers. Nothing would come of it until I got contacted by Johnny Blompier, who was the CEO of the agency at the time.
Yeah.
Great guy, a planner by trade, lovely bloke, big. And Nick Cleaver, who was the managing director. He's got Cleaver Means, But and a very excellent, I will say this, Nick Cleaver is one of the best closers of a pitch that you ever see. He really knows how to string the work together. I do admire that in him. But they came to Auckland to meet with me. Now, I mean, that made a big impression, because it wasn't like, we'll send you a ticket, bring your book, and we'll, Gary's mentioned, but we want to check you out. They flew. And I thought, well, they're obviously serious about it. And we went to Prago, I think, and I liked Johnny instantly. He would tell me interesting facts. They had the Northern Territory account at the time. He said, Michael, if you're in a river and it's like swimming and it's infested with crocodiles, and I thought, fuck, why would you swim in a river with crocodiles, But anyway, if you do, apparently, according to Johnny, you duck dive and you stay underwater for as long as possible. They won't open their mouths and eat you underwater. They'll take you at the surface, drag you down and start twisting, and then they put you in a lair and come back for you later. So I said, well, that's interesting. I'll know that. How you survive a crocodile attack is, well, avoid it, stand underneath the water. But it was that kind of thing. I thought, this sounds like the company for me. Well, I think, I'd say this to anyone that's listening, no matter what stage you are in advertising, sometimes you've got to get out there and grow your learning curve. That's why, you got to learn. And I wanted to learn because I didn't know that much. Even after 10 years of DDB, I think I was a hopeless
crocodile avoidance tips.
You're listening to Truth
And Soul.
the New Zealand Advertising Podcast.
So I took the job. They offered me ECD based in Sydney with Gary. And at the time, they had a Brisbane agency and a Melbourne agency. And they said, look, we can use you to impact in those two agencies as well. I took the job. moved across the ditch, walked into DDB, and at the time it was in this old building, wasn't there? New flash
North
one.
Sydney.
Yeah, and Berry Street, and it was like an office, well, like a 1970s
Accountants.
office.
It's pretty grim.
Yeah, it was grim. The Creatives had a big, large floor, though, and that was the first thing I noticed, the size of the creative department. I mean, there were a lot of teams there.
There was a pitch on, which a lot of old school ad people will know about, for Ansett and Air New Zealand.
Yeah.
And I'd say it was about 2001, 2002.
Yeah,
and
it was done run out of Melbourne.
And
I didn't go to Melbourne to 2005, so it may have been a bit earlier.
You like that? I was down half of Auckland,
Yes.
half of Sydney were all staying down in Melbourne to run this pitch. I believe they had 11 agencies.
Yes,
It was absolutely absurd. 11 agencies, and I think that they called the pitch just to get people flying, because everyone was flying between the Auckland, Sydney, and Melbourne. They got DDB got an apartment down there and filled it full of creatives, and every day we go into work at DDB Melbourne.
With Ted.
Yeah, Ted Horton and Gary.
Yeah,
was
everyone
crazy.
was dragged in. I mean, well, Sydney did that a lot. Sydney was a bit of a powerhouse. We were very good at pitching. We won a lot of business. Johnny Blompio is one of the best people for opening a pitch and doing it. He was clever. He never liked to rehearse, Johnny.
Yeah.
Have a read through, but not rehearse. He liked spontaneity. Was Nick. If Nick was running the pitch, you'd be rehearsing 3 or 4 times. I preferred to pitch with Johnny. I found it dynamic.
Yeah, so Ansett and New Zealand called a pitch. I don't know why. It was above my pay grade. Called a pitch, got 11 agencies across Australia and New Zealand involved in 11. It
11.
Shows pretty poor management. 11 agencies involved, and then halfway through they went bust and cancelled the whole thing.
Exactly.
And told every single agency that I've spoken to, because a lot of people were involved in that pitch, told every single agency that was involved that had they not gone bust, they would have won.
Yeah, I know. It was part of the ludicrous nature that we often sometimes encounter in our business, I guess. It's the iceberg waiting for the Titanic.
Yeah.
And it just shows what sort of whores that we can be. Not us, we're told we're just giving our marching orders, but you'd think any agency worth its salt would have said, look, as much as we are desperate or we like money, which either one, we're not going to go in with 11 other freaking agencies.
Yeah.
We're not going to do it. It's a waste of everybody's time. We have a 1 in 11 chance of winning. If I said to you, it is terrible odds. Would you get on a plane, you got 1 in 11 chance it's going to crash? Well, I should be okay, maybe. I wouldn't get on it. But, they do, and that happened a lot. Gary never liked doing that. He very much anchored in DDB Sydney. He didn't really have to go out and do that kind of thing. He thought it was a waste of time. He'd rather... Gary's notoriously early. He'll be at work by about 7:30. He has a white pad and he uses a fountain pen. And he loves it. He freaking loves every aspect of doing and creating ads. And working with Gary was a privilege, because I shared an office with him. That's how welcoming he was. He wasn't, you're not going to come in. No, we opened up, we shared an office. There was another CD in there, Tony. And you had 3 of us operating, and there's the multiple teams. And sometimes we had the Secret Sherry Club on a Monday, where you go in and start the morning, and Gary would pour a little nip of vintage sherry for all of us, brief what we got coming up in the week, the 3 CDs, and we'd knock back the sherry, and then we'd go out and deal with the teams and get on with it. So we had the Secret Sherry Club, which was done. He ran it sort of very much almost like a ship, a sea captain ship.
Yeah, drinking all day.
Well, no, not drinking all day. I mean, we did that at lunchtime. Yeah. But no, you've got to wait for lunch, Paul.
Oh, sorry.
And in North Sydney, talking of lunch, it had a restaurant downstairs.
Just one?
You just wait. You just come down from the office elevator as it opens. Right across the road is an Italian restaurant with a big garden, saying, "Come and get pissed here." I'm just popping downstairs, have a bite of pasta and think about this brief and discuss it in depth. cut to 6 o'clock. But the thing is, we used to have work would be sent down from the studios for sign-offs and things. The couriers carrying in, so it was convenient. It was convenient, but and that's Sydney. It was very, very different to the culture in Auckland. It was work hard, play hard.
Yeah, whereas in Auckland, the motto is work.
Well, work, and you get to do some play. You get to go to a lunch once in a while, and sometimes they're extravagant. Sure. Other times you may get a Christmas party. In Sydney, I'm not saying it was always like that. Let's get some perspective here. I mean, but we worked very hard. The teams worked incredibly hard. The account service, the planners, everyone in the agency worked hard. The studio especially. But it was a lot of play as well. Yeah. And a lot of the ideas are written across the lunchtime table. And if we go back and we speak about the Campaign Palace for a second, if we jump back in time, folks, the Palace they went out for lunch. And I'm not saying they wrote all their great stuff because of lunch or they did it all the time, but they were certainly a fun agency, and it reflected the advertising of that time. People went out, people went to the pub, people came back, and you can still write ideas. In fact, I've seen some amazing stuff written that's come back, believe it or not, by lunch, where you get people around throwing ideas in. And I think it also broke down the structure of the office, because a lot of the time, remember, Berry Street was an open plan. A lot of the agencies were set up, you had your office, so you're in your little piece. Whereas now, whatever you think of open plan, or whether you feel working around a big, large table and you're throwing ideas how scriptwriters work, I guess that sometimes a lunch could do that. But it's like everything, you needed to let people know where you were. If you had something you had to be back for, you couldn't really sit there and drink all day, and you had to deliver. And if you did all those three and you got it right and it worked, there wasn't a problem. So Sydney was, hard work and lots of play.
Hard work but fun. So you came back to Auckland, and at some stage you went, I know what, let's do something different. I know, I'll be a poet.
Well, after kind of before Auckland, I went to and ran Melbourne,
right,
for a while. We just in Sydney, I think the agency had picked up Camera Brief Agency of the Year, which was great for everyone who worked in the agency. But then they said to me, do you want to go up to Melbourne? Maybe we can give it a go. And I think that agency with Andrew Little was running it. Mm-hmm. And he assembled a good team. Ian Fulf, fantastic planner from London, BNP. And it was a great time. We worked together. We won a Victorian Agency of the Year in Ad News. We won it in B&T. So coming off the back, it was a nice place. That agency suddenly began to get some profile. We won business. We pitched a lot. And the teams that worked there was young teams, used to doing like nothing. They rose to the occasion. They put the hours in. I couldn't have asked for anything more. They were paid a pittance. I tried to. I never took a pay rise while I was there. It was offered because it was more about trying to, I just felt, geez. And that agency won the Agency of the Year award. Yeah. So it just shows you when you work as a team, it's cool. But, Paul, in 2008, like you did a croupier, so I clapped my hands at the table and buggered off and came back here.
You know why they clap their hands?
No.
To show there's nothing in them.
Ah, I thought it was...
No, it's not chop chop, they do that.
Yeah.
To show there's nothing in the hands.
Nothing in your hand.
Now you know.
Up your sleeve. But...
That's the second thing you learnt today, goes with a crocodile.
Yeah, well, I guess the reason was my relationship had sort of gone astray. There was a lot of hours working in Melbourne, and my partner didn't like living in Australia. She wanted to go back, and we'd had my son Oliver, and she just felt there was a better circle of parents there and the kids, and she was probably right. So I spent a lot of time flying from Melbourne to Auckland and vice versa. I see my son, and as soon as he was going to turn 5, around about 4, I just felt this wasn't sustainable. I need to be there when my son grows up. I want to take him to school, and that should be my priority. And at the same time, it was all ending anyway for the Australian management and myself, so that was cool. It was like serendipity, fantastic actually. So I came back to Auckland 2008, got a house in sunny Beach Haven, on the water, got in there and thought, well, what next? So I didn't do anything for 3 or 4 months, just hung out with my son, took him, walked him to school, go to Ponsonby where his mum, walk him to school, hang out with him, have him over, and that's what I did full time. And I loved every second of it. And then I thought, well, what happens when the money runs out? I had fish at the bottom of my property. You can catch snapper off the bottom of my property. And I thought, well, there's snapper, rice, soy sauce. Things could be worse.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what to do. So luckily I got contacted by DDB. DDB were keen internationally because I'd done a lot of work with the Pinnacle Awards. You know, those awards, they'd look at the internal work.
Yeah.
And I'd spent a lot of time with Bob Scapelli, and he was fantastic.
Great guy, Bob.
Oh, Bob's great. And when the whole Australian thing, he said, if you want to come to Europe, you want to come to America, just come over here. And I said, well, actually, thanks, but my son is really driving it now. So DDB got in contact with me and said, listen, you know, we need some help. And I said, well, I need some money. That would be good. I thought, well, this is a way to top up, get the savings in there. I said, but I like to work from New Zealand. I like to set up a table and sit outside on the deck. And I think it's a healthy way of working. And anyone who works with me, they can come there and that will be the office. The table. And Martin Brown, you know Martin Brown.
Brownie, yeah.
Great writer. And he would come and do work with me. In fact, we set up the table on online. We thought, well, why not? In between gigs, while we're looking, we set up the table, and the concept was, you know, work around the table. And that was an idea created by Andy Lish. Andy Lish first did the table in Melbourne. I mean, another part of Andy's genius. Yeah. You know, he can just think. So he kindly gave us the use of that. That's his idea. But the first gig was from DDB Korea.
So this was before, well, I guess it was in the middle of the great rise of the Korean economy with the car companies and Samsung, and it really became a powerhouse of Asia.
Well, yes. I mean, well, this is 2008. I think they're pretty well established, but Korea has grown. I mean, you saw it. It replaced Japan, okay?
I don't know that it replaced Japan, but it's...
Do you buy more LG than you do Sony?
Well, yeah, but
in the 80s,
I buy more
Sony.
Subaru than I do Samsung.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. I mean, we could play top trumps here if you bought the cards. You can be...
Okay, I've got Toyota. What do you got?
Me, German, Volkswagen Golf.
Yeah,
the ones you can rely on, they tell the truth.
That's not Korean. But...
No, but it's kind of. They're making a lot of them in China, actually. But... yeah, they said, do you want to do some work for DDB Korea? And they had a pitch for kiwi fruit, kiwi fruit gold and green, I think, as well. So they wanted an idea. So they were pitching to win the kiwi fruit account in Korea. So it's a bit of New Zealand connection. There was Les is a fantastic suit, had done a great job.
Les, who is now, he was a Kiwi guy who was in DDB Korea and is now in Nelson running the marketing, I think, for the Tasman rugby team, Marcos.
Yeah, he's a great guy. So, I keep saying all these great guys, but good fellas. But yeah, we did this thing. So Martin and I were writing it. You know, it has to be simple. And they sent us a lot of stuff from DDB Korea. And it was about blood types. They had a campaign because blood type is very important, what blood you are. And they tried to build this campaign about blood types. And I didn't understand it's a cultural thing. So how would I understand that? So I wasn't sure what to do. But it had lots of vitamins and nutrients in a kiwi fruit. It's a really wonderful piece of fruit. It's small, it's compact, it delivers a lot of punch for its fibre or vitamins. This is better than an apple. Yes, you have to peel it, I realise that, but it's good. And we did a campaign, and then they said, come to Korea, meet with the agency, work in there on the ground. So I did. Went over there, and that was a strange experience, Paul, working in Korea. It was just a very different culture. Everyone starts late. I actually turned up one morning on time, like 9 o'clock, and no one's there. They don't start till about 10, 11, because you work late. You work through about 11 o'clock at night. So I did some work there, and I liked the staff. I liked them a lot. And then we had a female creative director in there. She's fantastic. You get used to the culture. I got taken out lots. We had soju, a lot of soju. And I kind of liked it, and I liked Korea, and then they brought me more often. They would give me contract gigs, and I felt like I was working full time. So I'd do 10 days there, fly back home, then they'd fly me back across. Got me to go out with dinner with clients. Then Beijing got wind, and then Shanghai got wind, and DDB got me into Shanghai. I did gigs in Beijing, Volkswagen, working on that. And they looked after me once again. I like China. But that work was great. But at the same time, when I was back in New Zealand, getting to the point of your podcast,
Yes.
I guess, a roundabout way.
Yeah, it hasn't taken us long, folks. Go.
Okay. I had a head of art. She's Swedish. She worked for me in Melbourne, and she's fabulous. She's great. And she ran all the things. As soon as I saw the work, I just thought, you need to be running all these things. Fantastic. And even though we'd gone, she left when I left at the same team. We were partnered up. She said, I've had enough now. Very Swedish. I'm out of here. Just walked. She's in Ireland now doing books, ironically. She said to me, sent an email and said, there is a young artist you need to look at. I think she's very interesting. And I clicked on it, and it was Langley Ave. And Lang was in Sydney. She had launched a fashion range of clothing in Japan. She had won the Qantas Spirit of Australia Youth Award. She won a Churchill Fellowship Award, so back to Mr.
1874.
Churchill. 1874, she'd won that. And she was also, apart from fashion and doing art, she was doing handmade books. Limited numbers, 100 only, small. And she'd write like little poetry, do all the artwork, but handmade, made by hand, all beautiful. Tim Burton got one, the director. And I just thought, wow, that is good. I like that. I do like the work. That fascinates me because I was seeing, typography done. I was seeing craft skills, writing skills, art skills, all in the one. And, Paul, you look through book after book and book and book. And I thought, here's this girl, and she's won these awards at such a young age. She grew up in a refugee camp.
Yeah.
Parents have fled the Khmer Rouge, literally, the whole village.
So she's Cambodian?
She's actually Chinese. There were Chinese living in Cambodia. I think they had a sugar factory, and then the Khmer Rouge came in, put them in all their relations into a camp. And her father got on with one of the guards in there, and he said one day, you and your wife, and at the stage it was just Lang's two brothers, young kids, you leave now. And he meant now, he said, you tell no one or you're dead. They literally went into the jungle there and then. Not much later, came in, they killed everyone in the village, the Khmer Rouge, killed all Lang's relatives, killed them all. So, I mean, when you think of that, what a horrible thing. You all got families, you can't tell anyone.
Yeah, no, it's crazy what went on in
that
terrible. Part of Asia.
And they went through, I think, they walked for a couple of days, get to the Thailand, and then Lang's mum realised she was pregnant. And we're talking about, there was no nice refugee camp. In the 1980s, it wasn't very nice at all. We didn't have social media putting spotlights. It was just what you might see on the 6 o'clock news. So Lang was born in the refugee camp, and then eventually they arrived in Australia. Cabramatta, they went to Melbourne first, then they got sent to Cabramatta, which is the West Sydney. And that whole area in the 80s got taken over by crime. You had gangs, the 5 Ts, Vietnamese gangs. You had Australians. Pauline Hanson starting up at the time, Asians out, Asians are destroyers. And then she changed the rhetoric and applied it to Muslims. So that's how Lang grew up. She went to Cabramatta High. I think they had this weird motto about, they train you to serve, and they used to take them around factories. That's their inspiration. When you leave school, you go and work in the factory. So putting that all together, I thought, what a remarkable achievement to have done. So I bought a piece of art. I like art. I collect art. And not in a major way or anything significant, but I like art. But I wrote to her and I bought a piece of art. And then I started talking, online. I just said, is there a story behind this piece of art? And we started talking for a long time online. And then she asked me one day, said, look, I'm thinking about my brand. I read somewhere you did advertising. Is that true? I said, yes. She goes, do you think that I could talk to you about my brand? I said, yes, but I'm not going to keep typing here endlessly. If you're serious, here's my number. No pressure, but you can give me a call on Sunday at this time. And I gave her time. and Lang rang. And we spoke on the phone, we got on well, we spoke about our brand, and I said, you know, instead of calling yourself a Keener by Langley Ave, just become Langley Ave is the brand. Move that forward for your art. And I said, we need to get your art out of Australia. It needs to be in galleries in LA. So that's the next strategy, get you in, because then you replay that news back into Australia, LA artists, whatever. And
it's the same in New Zealand, I guess, that to do well in New Zealand or Australia is not enough. You have to have done well internationally, and then that will help
to be
you.
embraced. And I mean, this is where, even though this has seemed like a roundabout journey, I mean, the selling on the bears of my arse got me into advertising in a roundabout way, helped with pictures and presentations. And getting to the books is exactly right. It came from meeting Lang. We spoke for a year on the phone, Skyping. She met my son, as far as talking on the Skype, and got to know each other. And then I said, well, you're welcome to come have a look at New Zealand, come over.
Forget LA, what about Beach Haven?
Well, yeah, I said, come over, we should meet in person. We never met in person. Never met. Never, I mean, I don't use photographs. I certainly don't. On all my social media, I haven't had photos taken for years. And I believe that privacy is the best thing you can get these days, the nicest little thing you can have.
Yeah, that's interesting. Excuse me, Michael, because I looked you up on Quora.
Oh, yeah, do I exist?
Quora, and kids, Quora is, what is it? It's kind of, it's a website where people ask questions.
You ask questions.
And people answer.
When was Winston Churchill born? 1874.
Yeah, so we know. So these are the questions on Quora. Is Michael Faudet really a person or just an imagination of Langley Ave?
Yes.
Is Michael Faudet truly a mystery? Is it bad that I hate Michael Faudet?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, I know, in equal measure.
Can you show me a picture of Langley Ave and Michael Faudet together? Because people seem to think you are the same person. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's... Well, you know how that started.
Is Langley Ave actually Michael Faudet?
No, not really.
I am a big fan of Michael Faudet. If given the chance, would he meet me in person? That's just weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. So...
Oh, well, that's the thing. Well, because, Paul... photographs I don't use. I use an image of Mandrake the Magician. I've always used it, and I like it. I guess people put up cartoons or their favourite whatever. I put that up, and I was stuck with it. I just applied it to all the social media brands. But I mean, with all that questions, we'll certainly get to that quickly. But Lang basically came across, booked her a room at the Seaboard, because I felt it was the right thing to do for a mother, come some stranger's house. I mean, for all she knew, my house was, a caravan somewhere out near Albany, where I sharpened my axes.
So you moved out of that caravan?
Yeah, I sharpened my axes.
Oh, yeah.
That's right, come here, young lady. Yeah. Bang. So I thought, look, you need your own space, have that space, come over for the weekend, long weekend, we'd catch up, at the very best we'll be friends, hopefully. And we met at SPQR. So she met me at SP. I thought a nice place, dark.
Yeah, everything starts at SPQR.
Yeah, dark, and I like the dark part of it.
Yeah.
Very flattering, the light.
Yeah.
And then we met, and I think before we even got to, after the entree, she said, what's your house like? Why don't we have a look at that? Because I don't mind restaurants, but I'm happy, but you can look. And I said, well, we'll finish the entree, I don't need to stick around. Lang doesn't really drink wine, so which is great. I said, but I will say to you, it's across the bridge. It's not like it's down the road and you have a look. If you feel comfortable. And she said, yeah, of course I want to see it. And she came to the house, she opened the door and said, it's like a gallery. She says, your house is like an art gallery. I said, yeah, dusty, dirty art. Well, not dirty, dusty art gallery. And she came in and we hit it off, and she said, why am I staying at the Seaboard? Why can't I stay here? I said, well, you can stay here, obviously. I was just... And from that point on, we hit it off. We worked on stuff, and then we found that we liked each other a lot as well, Paul, and we got on. And she had seen some of my writing, because in the downtime between going off to Korea and Beijing, I started to write stuff. Just for mental therapy, really. It wasn't poetry, by the way. I was just writing bits for novels or ideas. She read it, she said, I love it. And she goes, even though I've done fashion, I do art, my strong point is writing. I love writing. So I said, well, I've got a studio here. Get another Mac, 2 desks. And it worked. She stayed, and we decided that we'd be together. A stroke of luck, I might add, a real stroke of luck. And then Lang came there, and I decided, well, I'm going to focus on Lang. If I was going to do any creative direction or work, I'll focus on the brand Langley Ave. Not that I needed to, because Lang runs her own show. She's got the brains in the partnership. We got into art galleries in LA first. We did it. We achieved it. She did the Playboy, I think, a big anniversary show. She got invited. Her work is in LA, bits of New York. So that was going good. But Lang, meanwhile, would just write poetry and prose, just because she could. And then she started using Tumblr, which was is a social media blogging site. Very introspective of the social media. You can't just chat around. You can now, but the days it was you put your pictures up there, you lived in your dark world. But anyway, she started to post a few of the prose and poetry pieces up, and they just began to go viral. People seemed to really like them. They were going, wow. And Lang said to me, look, people like it. And I said, but it's poetry. And I was thinking in the back of my head, at the time I was still smoking, a cigarette on my deck, thinking, fuck, poetry. How will poetry books sell? How would you sell that in New Zealand? I had visions of standing at some market stand, buy this poet, and we come home and say, well, that wasn't bad. We sold 6 books today. And I thought I could sell, but I'm not sure we're going to get critical mass. But Lang believed in it, and that's the great thing about Lang. She just said, it's getting the sales. And then, of course, it dawned on me, to your earlier point, act locally, but think globally. It's kind of, just because we're here doesn't mean we have to sell everything here, and I think it's a fatal mistake. It's different if you're an All Black. If you're Richie McCaw and you put a book out at Christmas time, chances are Dad's going to buy it. But even with us, and that's a successful book here in New Zealand, but you're talking about on global, good living, good book. I'd be very happy with it. I don't know, 30,000, whatever. That's good. Nothing wrong with that. Brilliant. But you're not necessarily going to make a living on that. And that is rugby to a rugby mad nation. And there's rugby fans all around the world, so other people might buy it. But poetry, for goodness sake, going back to headline, poetry is dead, Barnes & Noble. But having said that, I would stay up at night and I thought, I'm going to fucking study this market. I'm going to learn as much as I can about it. And I looked at it and I believe there was a gap to disrupt in that market, and what was giving me the clues what Lang was writing and how it was going viral. Millennials sort of interface, there was a perfect storm happening. They were sick of poetry at school. Boring, bloody, got to listen to this, and difficult, it's hard, and therefore they weren't going near it. At the same time, they were texting each other, they read memes, brevity. Brevity was the key. We want things quickly, we want it simple. Social media was really a soapbox for everyone to start standing on, and it's become a mirror to reflect what we're really like as a human race, I guess, the good and the bad. But social media was people expressing, and I studied the target. I looked at the shops and thought, well, poetry selling's not good. It's not good, but it's a simpler market. If you could make it good, then say, I'm going to write a book and expect you're going to be next to James Patterson next year. You're fucking not. So we thought it was a weak market if we could do anything with it. And then Lang stuff taking off, and people started writing to, I wish you had a book. I wish we had a book out there. And we thought, well, that's an interesting point. It seemed that millennials wanted to talk about love. They wanted to talk about feelings, anxiety, expressions, same as everyone. And Lang writes beautifully, but she could sometimes write some simple pieces as well. I mean, if Lang wants to, she could write like Charles Dickens. But she wrote some pieces, and they touched people. It was amazing seeing how people sort of reacted. And they would send, because you can't just write like Facebook on Tumblr, as I said, but they could send messages and would see it. So we thought, well, why don't we make a book? Why don't we put a book out there, sell it on Amazon? And
self-publish.
Yeah, well, self-publish. And I looked into that. So I said, right, well, we know the audience is millennials on social media. And we believe that they will read and enjoy this kind of writing. It would be a female bias, 95% female. Men aren't just reading enough. They don't read. We also identified Asia as massive. Asians are better educated. They read more. than what, say, in America. No offence from America, I know a lot of Americans do, and you read lots. This is a very big generalisation. I apologise if you get upset, but it seemed that Asia was more with it.
You said Americans can't read. Yeah, keep going.
Well, but I don't know why you didn't. I don't know why you don't like Sandy Moore. I don't know why you don't like Sandy Moore. He's a great fucking guy, Sandy. I'm surprised. I know you like Pete, but I know, I'm only kidding with you. But they're fun editing that. But the thing with the book, the self-publishing, you can either physically go to some printer down the road and say, can you print me some? Print me 1,000 copies. And stick it in your garage, and they'll probably stay in your garage for 10 years.
Yeah.
And it's expensive. So self-publishing, Amazon do it with Create Space. But I didn't trust Amazon fully. I sort of heard they're good. And yes, they'll promote you on their channel a little bit, but they can hinder you getting into bookstores or going elsewhere. So we found a different group that was backed by Ingram Spark, which distribute books all around the world. So we knew we could get on Amazon anyway. We knew we could get on the Book Depository that do free worldwide delivery. Great place to buy your books. We knew we could get into, more importantly, barnesandnoble.com, the Barnes & Noble online stores. And so we found this company. Lang had written a manuscript. We got a company in Melbourne to lay it out, proof check it, do it all. Lang designed the artwork, cover artwork for the book. And we went for print on demand, which is beautiful, because print on demand is if Paul Catmull orders a book from Amazon or from anywhere, they print one book and it goes out.
Yeah.
So it's slightly more per unit, but here's the rub. You can set your own price. I would set it, say, $16.99 USD. We can decide on how much money we want to make from that. At the time, on that particular one, we said 10 USD per book sold, which when you compare it to a publishing royalty where a publisher is chalk and cheese. 10 USD, no returns, buy it, you don't like it, burn it, but we're not having it back, thank you. And we put the book out there, and we had also been building up our Facebook, not on our personal, we created a business page, had been building that up. We bought another... You paid to promote on Facebook? No, we just created a business page. So you had Langley Ave personal, Langley Ave, I guess what they call their business pages. And at the time, Zuckerberg hadn't done the bait and switch, where he says, come up here, and then now we're going to turn off your viewership down unless you pay. Yeah. So it was a serendipity and luck, Paul. That was all it was. So if you got followers on there, they saw what you were putting up. We also bought a couple of Tumblr blogs. There was a big blog that was run by a guy, and it went to Asia. I think it had around about, at the time, not sure, 400 to 500,000 people on it. So we bought that, did a deal with him, and we got it at a reasonable price, very reasonable. I can't remember exactly. I don't know, 10 grand, not sure.
So he had a blog, and you just took it over?
Yeah, bought it.
What started writing your own stuff?
Well, no, what we do, he had this very popular blog that it was called Love Quotes. And it would put out all different stuff. So it had a lot of followers, like I said, 400,000 to 600,000. And, a post could go up there, Paul, and it'd get 23, 30,000, 40,000 likes. Quickly. So we contacted, a lot of these are just kids running in there, or he was an actual guy who was running, wasn't a kid. He said he wants, 10 grand from memory at the time, US. And that's a lot for it was a lot for me at the time. I had money. Remember, I was just doing a bit of the odd gig, watching the bank account go downwards. And I'm thinking, and what you're buying is some Tumblr blog. Give them the money and you get nothing back. You can't see any of the people. And the way it works, you give them the money, they give you the password. Once you've got the password, you can change the password and you control the blog. So you can put up content like it runs, and we could thread a few of Lang's work every now and again, so it doesn't become the Langley Ad blog. Keep it as business as usual. Yeah. But get the work out there, and we did that. We secured that, and we secured another blog for less money out of South America that specialized in just black and white pictures, but we'd see the work in. So we started that up because we realised that to get to our target market, social media was the best way.
So the pair of you, or you must spend an awful lot of time on social media, curating, posting, looking after. we in the beginning, which is 2013 we're speaking now, we did spend a lot of time because we had to. So like half your day?
Not really. What you do bursts, because you look at the markets. You know, Asia comes online later than here, and America's different. And we identify the target will be Asia and the US, not Australia, not New Zealand. I said, if we try to sell in New Zealand, be a success here, we're going to have no money. We're raising a turnip fucking patch. So we did work on that. You do 2-hour bursts or whatever, and you check. But Lang's writing as well. You know, she's doing things, and I'm taking out the garbage, there's a dog to be walked, and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. So life goes on. But we got the book together. We priced it at our price point. We sent it out into the ether, and it went up. And in the first month, we sold 10,000 copies moved. And I suddenly went, geez, we're making 10 USD a book, 10,000 moved in a month. Right. So I just sort of went back and kept looking. I kept looking at it, you know. So I don't trust the figures.
And it was sold through the blogs.
So well, I guess so. Collectively, people found out about her work. So we said, you know, they've been asking. Now there's a book. It's called Love and Misadventure. Here's a picture of that. And it went to number 1 on Amazon, which wasn't difficult. In poetry,
yeah.
Right, but it's still a number 1. It's
number 1
bestseller.
Alfred Lord Tennyson.
Yeah, he's a good guy. But it was number 1. But there are still what I call the modern poets like Mary Oliver. And there's a few of them out there selling well. So you fall into that category, and suddenly this book arrives, Love and Misadventure from New Zealand. And
sorry, because if you go New Zealand, Australia, you go, not many people are interested in poetry in those 2 countries. But if you go the world as a whole, you only need 0.001% to be interested in it, and you've got it's viable.
You nailed it. That was our strategy. Act local, think global. And what have we got to lose, Paul? It's just as hard and expensive to try and flog it around here than it is to take it over there and give it a go. You had nothing to lose. But the book, once you got the bestseller, and that was in all poetry, by the way, at the time, all freaking poetry, it shot up the chart. And we just go, well, that can't be right. And the way that they pay you, I think it was quarterly or bi-monthly, you get a check. And, you know, when the check came in, it was good. I'll go, fuck. Jesus, that was good. Now, remember, that was the initial burst. So any goodwill we'd built up for months, that was it. So it wasn't like you're going to sit back and go, oh, you know, don't worry, next month will be another 10,000 sold. Let's pocket the money. This is a good life. I'll buy a yacht. No, of course it's not going to be like that. That was initial burst. But what it did, it put the wind in our sails, and then more importantly, gave us some capital. You know, we covered our costs that we'd spent on the blog, getting it made up. We covered quickly. We had money left over. I didn't have to go and take freelance work or contract work with DDB. We had enough to see us through for a year and a bit. Lang was gloriously happy with that. And then it's kind of, we got a phone call from a literary agency in New York, Writer's House, and the original founder of that is a fantastic guy called Al Zuckerman. He founded the company. He's in his 80s. And he's done lots of, he's all for, I don't know if you guys know, Ken Follett, he wrote all the Pillar of the Earth.
Yeah, didn't like it, but I'm sure lots of other people did.
Well, they do. So I saw Ken flogged around about 500 million books. And then they've got Neil Gaiman, they've got Stephanie Meyer, all the Twilight series. There's good authors in there. So we were like, wow. And he rang up, and they'd seen the results of a poetry book was going to stand out like dog's balls within the groups. Barnes & Noble were looking at the damn thing.
They were just generally looking at what's hot in publishing and going, hang on, who are these people?
Well, we noticed it, and so we approached. Well, when we saw that going, I said, we'll get a literary agent. Where? I said, Lang, we'll go to New York for one. Why not? The worst is they say no. What if we sell them in? We go, yeah. So we wrote to one agent and then to Writer's House. I said, let's go for the 2 best. Don't fuck around. Start there. One came back and said, we're keen. Let's talk. Goldrick said, let's talk. And then Writer's House came back. And Al rang us, contacted us. Got on the phone. We picked it up. Oh, I'm Al Zuckerman. I run the Writer's House. Very impressed with, I've heard that you wrote to us and we've had a look. And he said, I'd like to, you're our writer now. I'm going to send you a contract through the fax machine. Yeah, chattels. And I said to Lang, she's thinking, she's writing a thing, do you think we should talk about this? Because we have the other one. And I said, well, we should, but he's offering a contract. Take the contract, maybe, question mark. I said, oh, yeah, I'll do that. He sent the contract through, and Lang signed it. She was signed by Writer's House in New York. Great literary agency. Couldn't have wished for better. And then a week later, he said, I've sold the book. Sold it to a US publisher. They're going to take the book over from you guys, so there'll be a handover in a month. They'll lay it all out, put their logo on it, and then we can transfer the sales messaging and all of that, and then we'll take the book over. So that's what happened, that they took the book over, and then the book started to really sell. It was selling anyway, and it began to get critical mass, and book sold heaps. And
so you went from self-publishing and getting a really large chunk of that price to getting a publisher in the States selling far more books, but obviously your chunk
normally
goes down.
I mean, you can always adjust on self-publishing, about boring people. $10 at the time was the maximum you want to go for a $16.99 novel. So you sell less, you make more. If you want the bookstores to take your self-published novel, which they will do, if you're lucky, you need to change the price. You have to accept returns, and you have to probably drop that price down to... Well, Barnes & Noble, when I was doing my books, they contacted me, the head buyer, said, we want to stock some of your books, try it out, selling well on
So before you had an agent?
Yeah, before I had an agent. He just contacted us, but we're probably jumping ahead of ourselves here, but... so you changed the price, he wanted it, I changed it to $4 a book. He said, actually, I meant $2 a book, but he took me anyway. So I still, $4 USD a book, laughing. For Asia, you probably want to be around about $2 USD a book, because, especially countries like the Philippines, you don't want your book priced too much, or India. But with royalties, going back to that bit, publishers don't really pay a lot of royalties. You just get a small royalty percentage. I think sometimes about 15%, sometimes 10%. Okay,
we're getting quite technical there in terms of
that's a bit boring as well.
It's interesting to me or other people who want to get in this field. But generally, between the pair of you, it's been an incredible success. You've published between you, I don't know, 4.
Well,
6 books.
no, Lang's done. Lang really took off, and she's published about 5 or 6 poetry books, 2 novels. The latest one's just out. Yeah. But her books just began to grow in the US, but Asia, amazingly so. If Lang does a book signing event in the Philippines, she'll have 1,000 people turn up. In fact, they do ticketed. You have to apply, and you have 1,000. She signs 1,000 books at a go, and they scream. She has a security detail. She has drivers. She has a team about 6 or 7 for protection. They go through. They now hold them in big open shopping mall areas with several levels, because you can't fit crowds into.
So she's like a bona fide celebrity author in Asia.
That's incredible. I'd say she's probably the biggest selling author in New Zealand by far.
So think about that.
I mean,
people.
It's
all through social media and talent, obviously.
Look, through her talent. I mean, you've got to have the talent. I always say this to people about. They ask, if I get social media, will I be famous? Well, I say this. It's a bit like anything, it's the same as putting up a piece of writing is like putting up cat pictures and things. Some will work, others won't. So you've got to have something there, a reason that people want to share it. If they relate to it and they can connect with it, so be it. And also, you need to focus on it. I hear so many people, I've got a book, I'm going to start a Facebook or Twitter account. They do it for about 3 months, I'm a bit bored, I only got 3 likes on that one, they give up. Yeah. Well, I can assure you, we started with 0 and we had to build it. Yeah. We now have over 2 million. In excess of 2 million readers across our social media, which is mainly Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Yeah. Which is good. You've got to build that dialogue, but that's taken us from 2013 to now to build. So it wasn't like overnight. It's a job. It's a job. I don't think writing a book is a part-time hobby. If you're serious about it, it's a job. But with Lang, her books have taken off. She does signing. She just came back from the US. She's done signing at Barnes & Noble at the Grove in LA. She did Upper West Side in New York. She did Chicago. She travels around the world, and in fact right now she's in Malaysia ready to do a signing. So her books...
Who organises the signings? Is that New York Go?
Publisher or some of the bookstores come directly, and the publishers pay for Lang, all the hotels. We stay when we go to New York. We stay. So Lang moved into novels. He did first Sad Girls and now Poencia as a novel, 2 novels, because looking at poetry, that whole segment has grown. We're not the only ones in there. Several now. It's a very cluttered, because our publisher saw there was money in this, so they went signing up anyone who could write, and sometimes it works, other times it doesn't. So we're lucky to get on the ground base, but there's plenty of other poets who sell more than us now. So it's like it took off. People, because girls, especially in America, they walk around. You don't have to be like, you can be like all those sort of girls who read all the novels, all nerdy and smart. I can be like that too. I look at my book, I can read it, because some things can be a single line. You can say so much, others are more in depth. Yeah. And the thing that we see about this connection is that anything that encourages young people to pick up a book in this world has got to be a good thing, because I fear that books and reading is going down the wayside. So anything that gets more people in, and that was the success. People who didn't read started to come in, as well as people that did read and go, this is more relatable than, say, Emily Dickinson. I love Emily Dickinson. I love Robert Frost. They were writing beautiful stuff. And Frost writes simply, in a way. And Charles Bukowski, oh my God, I could take his posts out, stick them on the internet now, and they are see them. There's not, some great ones, there's other ones dodgy. I think you get that. So her books took off. I mean, I don't know. She sold a lot of books, a lot.
I'm going to stop you there, Michael, but we will maybe continue this conversation later over lunch. But thank you so much for coming in. I think that's an incredible story. I think it's great that, as you say, anything that encourages people to read it's a good thing. It's
good. I think it's good, and it also helps people discover other poets. So you might go and grab one of Lang's books or one of mine, and you find a different poet there, a Robert Frost, a Tennyson. Yeah. And you pick the book up. So it's about conjuring the love of actual words again. And I think it's good to stop on Lang. We don't need to talk about me and my books, because that's for another time. About you and your books. I was quite happy to go on, but I'm just aware of Tempest Fugit. Oh, right, yeah. Well, we're doing my books another time. It's not that important. I mean, the most important ones is Lang. And in a short case, I started writing books. I got picked up by Writers' House, and I've had 5 books published. The new one's just out, and new audiobooks just been bought by Penguin Random House. Who reads the audiobooks? Do you read them? No, I listen to them. No, I got paperback books of one publisher, and then Penguin Random House came in, outbid my publisher, and stole all the work and made audiobooks out of them. They get their own reader. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I'm a bit stupid. Yeah. Well, I am a lot stupid. Not a bit. No, I got British. I said I wanted a British accent, and Penguin said, "Oh, we've got this British actress, Catherine McEwen, I think, and she did a great job, and they launched them yesterday. So now we have 2 publishers." And Lang, they bought Lang's new novel. They snatched. It was like a competitive under came in. There was a bidding war. Yeah. 4 people went, including our existing publisher, our books. Penguin just upped the ante, and they said, we'll buy everything. And they went in and bought. So it's like a 2-agency system. We're a client now with 2 agencies competing, which is good. But I guess with Lang, if it shows anything, from Beach Haven, you can sell books to the world. It doesn't matter whether it's books or something else. Yeah. We make a reasonable living. We pay the bills. It is poetry. It's not James Patterson stuff, but it's poetry. It pays better than advertising by far. You've got all the time in the world to yourself, other than writing and doing bits. And here in New Zealand, we keep an absolute low profile. I think Fashion Quarterly did a big feature on Lang, but that's about it. We stay clear of it. Because Lang likes to feel this is my home. We're New Zealand citizens. We both became citizens, and we just feel that this is our place. It's a great creative spot and a great place in the world to be. Well, we have hugely significant listenership of this podcast, Michael, so I'm afraid your cover might be blown, and if you see 3 listeners standing outside your Beach Haven complaining, moaning at the work, and then they put all their shit work up online. People do that, but we put most of the nice things in the books, but everyone sort of gravitates to the more erotic stuff. I don't know why.
I can't think.
I don't know. But look, I think for anyone out there, you know, I know a lot of time when I was in advertising, everyone's talking about, I'm going to make a book, I'm going to do a film director. My advice is do it. Number one, just freaking do it.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to walk away from the regular paycheck. I know it's hard, but set your life up how you want to do it and find a way you can manage a different life. You know, sell the house, get a nice caravan, stick it on a nice block of land, cut your cost down in half and do what you want to do. Think outside your own market. Treat it like a full-time job, because it is. That means you're serious. Burn the fucking bridge. You're either doing it or you're not. And go for it. Expect the disappointments, because they're going to come. Understand that with books it's very difficult, but there's a lot that you learn over the year. I could write a book on books and taking things to market, and I think New Zealand's got a great opportunity, not just with books, with a lot of its stuff. But same with music. You know, if you think you do it, why not go and live in LA for a while? I know it's not as easy and simple as doing that. Look, kids say, oh, wanker, how am I going to fly over there? But you've really got to look outside the square and look to Asia. There's a big freaking clue. We sell a stack of books. We're always in the top fiction charts in the Philippines. There are millions and millions and millions of people in the Philippines. They read English perfectly because they've had the Catholic Church.
You've been listening to Truth
And Soul.
the New Zealand Advertising Podcast.
Michael, thank you so much.
Yeah, it was a bit boring probably for your listeners, but
no,
you don't have to use it.
We'll edit
Paul.
me out.
Yeah, you don't have to use it, Paul. I mean, I never get offended.
But thank you.
You're most welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Drop us a line, paul@truthandsoul.co.nz. Thank you very much to everyone at Franklin Road, Jonathan, Cole, the wastrel Shane, Vanessa and Gracie, Otis who did the logo, and Matt Stalker who's going to play us out. Thank you.
On the farewell drive, we found 100 ways that our hands fit together. Centrifugal force pulls us apart as we spin. Please forgive my trembling hands, crudely silhouetted by the flickering spires of candlelight. While the wicked sleep sound, the anxious toss and turn, thoughts come not as single spies, but in battalions. While the wicked sleep sound, the anxious toss and turn. And it's at times like these understand our father's fascination with dendrology. The family tree is losing its leaves. Please forgive my trembling hands, crudely silhouetted by the flickering spires of candlelight. While the wicked sleep sound, the anxious toss and turn, thoughts come not as single spies, but in battalions. While the wicked sleep sound, the anxious toss and